It can be tough to figure out how many units you need to order for your new product, but in this video, I'll show you a simple formula you can use to help figure that out. But first, my name is Crescent, and if this is our first time meeting, welcome to my channel. My passion is sharing tips and strategies on how you can create a successful Amazon FBA private label business. So if you enjoy videos like this, or especially if you've been around my channel, consider subscribing and hit that like button, or share this video with a friend to help spread the word. So ultimately, how many units you can order depends on how much capital you have. However, even if capital isn't a problem for you, you still need to figure out the ideal number of units you should order so that you don't underorder and risk running out of inventory, and you don't overorder so that you end up paying long-term storage fees, unnecessary shipping costs, and additional risk should the product not sell as well as you expected. First, let's dispel a common myth that I see a lot of people suggesting, and that's doing a small test order. And by small, I mean less than 200 or 250 units. There's several problems you may not be aware of if you decide to do a small test order. First and foremost, you're handicapping yourself on being able to do a proper product launch. Your primary goal for any product is to get it ranked onto the first page, and in order to do that, you need to move enough units, especially during the product launch, that it matches or beats the daily sales velocity of the top listings on the first page, which can take anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks, depending on the level of competition in the niche. If you don't order enough units, you won't give your listing a chance to get to the first page in order to perform organically, and thus your listing may not be generating any significant organic sales, not because you chose a bad product or you have a bad listing, but because it's not on the first page and no one is seeing your listing. Secondly, doing a small test order is just as if you miscalculated and didn't order enough units. You run out of inventory before you can react and order a new supply in time to arrive before running out of stock, which would then cause your listing to drop in rank and the BSR to go up while you're waiting for new inventory to arrive, thus wasting your efforts you spent on the initial product launch. But running out of stock isn't the end of the world, and most new users make it out to be a much bigger deal than it needs to be. Think about it this way: if you're running out of stock, that means you chose a good product. So that's a great problem to have rather than a product that isn't selling. Just know that when your new stock arrives, you'll most likely have to do a small giveaway to get re-ranked. Third, you simply may not even be able to order such a small quantity anyways, as most suppliers have a much higher MOQ, which stands for minimum order quantity. One side note on the mindset of those that are thinking of doing small test orders is that they often are trying to save money, and thus they also don't put their private label brand or logo on the product either. I highly suggest not taking this approach. You always want to put your private label brand or logo on your product so that you have some protection against hijackers. Now, on the other hand, you also don't want to overorder so that you end up having to pay unnecessary shipping costs or storage fees. This is why you need to analyze the niche and figure out ahead of time how many units you should order instead of guessing or using some suggested number. So, how do you figure out this number? First, during your product research phase, you should have product tracked the top listings and collected daily sales data. So you should already know how many units the top sellers are selling per day. If not, I have a video on it here. There are also some tools you can use that will give you an estimate of the daily sales velocity, such as in the Jungle Scout Chrome extension. But you really should be product tracking to get as accurate sales data as you can. Next, you need to know what is called the lead time from your supplier. The lead time is how much time it takes to manufacture the quantity you need plus the shipping time, whether that is by air or by sea. One thing to note is that the manufacturing time can differ depending on how many units you're ordering. So for future orders, if you decide to order more units than your initial order, it may take considerably longer to manufacture. So make sure you get the details from your supplier so you can calculate the restocking times correctly. Now, you need at least a month of sales so that you can do a proper product launch to get your listing to the first page and start generating organic sales, so that you have some historical sales data you can use to determine if you've chosen a good product or not. You see, there's no way to ever mitigate 100% of your risk when launching a new product, but if you've done your product research correctly, then your product should be moving the expected daily sales velocity that you project once it reaches the first page. So once your listing does reach the first page, you can then make an educated decision on whether or not it's indeed performing and if you should reorder inventory or not. Let's use some example numbers so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's say, for example, your product tracking showed that the top sellers are moving 10 units per day. That means that in order for your listing to get onto the first page, you'll also need to move 10 or more units per day. So for your product launch, you're going to do PPC and or giveaways and move 10 units per day. You'll have to continue this for at least 2 days to a couple weeks or sometimes longer, depending on how competitive the niche is. So you can easily see that a test order of 100 units would only last you 10 days. Clearly not enough units. So simple math shows that to last 1 month, you need 300 units. That's 10 units per day times 30 days. Now the question is that enough units? Let's say that hypothetically, it takes your supplier 5 days to manufacture those 300 units and 7 days to airship it to the Amazon warehouse. So the lead time is 12 days, assuming there are no delays. But a pro tip here, most new sellers don't realize that Amazon also takes a couple days to inventory your shipment before adding them to your active inventory. That can be another 2 days to a week. So realistically, a reorder can take 14 to 20 days, again, if there's no additional delays, such as production delays, shipping delays, customs, or anything unexpected. Now you can determine a crossover time. If you order 300 units, that will last you approximately 30 days, but a reorder will take 14 to 20 days. So that means in order to not run out of inventory, when your inventory is down to 140 to 200 units, you'll need to put in a new order with your supplier. To reiterate, you know it can take up to 20 days for new inventory to arrive, so you know that at the latest, when you have 20 days of inventory left, you must place another order. Otherwise, you're going to run out of stock. Make sense? Now, one caveat I want to mention here is that if your product does well, you may want to increase the size of your second order since you'll probably get a better price per unit, or since you're confident in it now, you just want to have more inventory on hand. Well, like I said earlier, production time may differ. So if you want to order 500 or 1,000 units, it may not be 5 days to manufacture. It may be considerably longer. So you need to make sure you get these details ahead of time from your supplier so you can factor them in. All right, so if you placed an initial order of 300 units, that means 10 to 14 days in, you'll have to already make a decision on if you need to place another order. That may not be enough time, but it does give you a week and a half to 2 weeks buffer. Whereas if you ordered anything less, you wouldn't be able to make an educated decision since you don't have enough sales data, and if you don't want to run out of stock, you'd have to commit additional funds on a second order without any confirmation that your product is a good one. Ideally, you'll want to launch your product, get it to the first page where it's starting to make organic sales for a week or more, then decide if you need to make another order or not. Because only then can you really see if you've chosen a good product or not. I hope that makes sense. Once your listing is on the first page and you've optimized your listing, if it's not moving your expected units per day without your PPC and giveaways, then you may not have selected a good product, so you may not want to place a second order. But until your listing gets to the first page, you can't know this. So that's why it's important you order enough units. If you haven't ordered enough units, you haven't given your listing a chance to get to the first page to generate those organic sales for you to make an informed decision. Additionally, if you only manage to get to the second or third page, for example, and you run out of inventory, then your listing is going to drop in rank while you're waiting for new stock to arrive. And so you've just now wasted those units you gave away to get to the second or third page. You'll have to continue with your PPC and giveaways when your new stock arrives just to get back to where you left off, and then more to continue onto the first page. Now, if you were only out of stock for a few days, this may not be too many additional units, so I wouldn't worry too much about running out of stock, but it's something to consider, especially if the lead time is pretty long. Now, if you do end up with a bad product and you're stuck with inventory, that's okay. With Amazon, you can almost always recover most, if not all of your investment. You can set your price to your break-even point and let your stock sell out. It just might take a while. There are other liquidation options too, but those are beyond the scope of this video. All right, So I hope that made sense. Basically, if you're not afraid to run out of stock, then you'll need to order enough units to cover at least a proper product launch, which can take a couple weeks. So that's the number of units per day you expect to sell multiplied by 14. If you don't want to run out of stock, then you'll want to make sure you order enough units to cover a product launch plus the lead time. So that's 14 days plus the lead time days multiplied by the number of units you expect to sell per day. If that made sense, leave me a thumbs up in the comment section or a question if you're confused. Thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe. And to make sure you never miss a video, click that bell icon to turn on notifications. There's also a link in the description to our community forums, which you should totally join. And if you're looking for more tips and strategy videos, click or tap over here. And as always, thanks for watching.